In Chapter 7, we're going to graph systems of equations. Well, what is a system of equations? It's two or more equations. And the solution is going to be a point, so x and y, where two lines cross each other. So in Chapter 7, each section that we do is going to be a different way to find these answers. But the idea of what we're doing is we're really graphing two lines, and we're just naming the point where they cross. That's going to be your solution. Okay, you're going to name the point. Now, we're going to start you off easy. So the first thing we're going to do is ask you the question, is the point a solution to the system of equations? The system just means that there's more than one equation. So if you look at these two examples, there's more than one equation for both of these. Okay? So in order for the point to be a solution, it has to work in both equations. So if one of them is not true, then automatically you say no. Okay, even if there's just one that's not true. It doesn't matter if one equation works. If the other equation doesn't also work, you have to say no to the entire system. So it must be true for both equations. Okay, so pause the video and write that down before I scroll and move on to the examples. Let's come up a little bit. Okay, so is the point a solution to the system of equations? You're going to take your point, and you can label it as x and y, and you're going to plug them into both equations. So the first one, y is 10, x is 2. Does 10 equal 2 plus 8? Well, 2 plus 8 is 10, so yes, it works in that one. Let's try the next one. It has to work for both, so just because it works for one doesn't mean I can stop. Instead of y, I'm going to say 10 equals 3. Instead of x, I'm going to use the 2 plus 4. And again, I'm getting these numbers from the point that they gave you. They're going to give you a point. So 10 equals 3 times 2 is 6. And 6 plus 4 equals 10. So because it worked for both, don't forget to answer the question. Say yes, it is a solution to the system. All right, let's try the next one. Is negative 4, 2 a solution to the system? Well, negative 4 is my x and 2 is my y. So plugging it into this first equation, negative x is negative 4 plus 2. So negative 4 really means positive 4. Is 4 plus 2 equal to negative 2? No, it's equal to 6. So because this one didn't work, I'm not even going to bother checking the second example. As soon as one doesn't work, you just say no. And that's the first step. So is the point a solution? You plug your numbers in for x and y and just see if it works in both equations. If it doesn't work in one of the equations, you just say no and stop working. So now let's move on to how to do this by graphing to actually find the answer. So pause the video if you need to before moving on. So now to solve by graphing. Before you can graph anything, you need to make sure that you solve both equations for y. So you have to write them in y equals mx plus b form. If you have other letters other than x and y, sometimes they like to change them up on you just to be exciting or not be so boring. Just make sure that you go in alphabetical order. So whatever letter comes first in the alphabet, you make that one an x. So out of P and T, P comes first in the alphabet, so P would be the same as X, and T would be the same as Y. So feel free to change them, and I would rewrite this as Y equals 3X minus 2. Then it's a whole lot easier to graph. If you don't use graph paper for this section, it's going to be a whole lot harder to find the answers. So please use graph paper. And then you can use a straight edge to draw the line, or just count the slope a bunch of times. I recommend counting the slope a bunch of times because it just makes it so much easier to find your answer. And then all you do is name the point where the two lines cross. So I'm going to have to scroll. So pause the video if you need to write all those steps down, and then I'll walk you through the example. Okay, so I have to take each of these and fix them. 1/3 x plus y equals 8. I want to get the y by itself, so I'm going to minus 1/3 x from both sides. Y equals negative 1/3 x plus 8. Okay, so that's the first one. That's done. Now let's solve the second one. I have negative 4x plus 2y equals 2. To get the y by itself, I'm going to add 4x. And I'm left with 2y equals 4x plus 2. And I need to divide everybody by 2. So y equals 2x plus 1. Okay, now remember to graph a line. You have your m and your b. You always start at the b, which is the y-intercept. So for the blue line, I'm going to go to positive 1 on the positive 1 on the y-axis and put a dot. And now I'm going to count my slope, but remember we like to use a fraction and we like to say rise over run. So to turn 2 into a fraction, I can just put it over 1. So I'm going to go up 2 and over 1, put a new dot, up 2, over 1, up 2, over 1. See, graph paper makes this a whole lot easier. Now, remember, we should always do the opposite slope too. So instead of going up 2 into the right one, let's go down 2 into the left one, down 2 into the left, and we're getting a bunch of points. You don't have to do this many, but the more points you have, the easier it is to see where your two lines cross. Oops, that's a little off. Okay, so there's that line. Now let's graph the other line and see where they cross each other. All right, so I'm going to start with my b, which is positive 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, now I count my slope, and this is rise over run. So because that 1 is negative, I'm going to go down 1 and run over to the right 3. Oh, look, I already hit the other line. So let's do it again, down 1 and over 3, put a dot. Oops. And connect them, make a line, and because I used graph paper, it's really easy to see that that is the solution. Now I just have to name that as a point. Well, to get there, I have to go 3 to the right, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 up. So the solution is 3, 7. Okay, so that's what we're doing in this entire section. We're just naming the point where two lines cross. In 7-1, we're only doing this by graphing. In the other sections, we're going to cut out the graphing and we're going to do it using algebra. So there's all different methods to do here, but 7-1 is all about graphing lines. So make sure you solve your equations for y, start at the b, and then count your slope as rise over run. So pause the video and fill that in, and then we'll try some work tomorrow in class.